Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. And Jim, it was a busy week out there at Grand Park in Westfield. I am happy to say I survived another training camp. It is
You
over.
did it.
The bucket hat might have to get
Yay.
retired until next year. It's the only time I really wear it, but
No,
we have a lot to discuss.
you
That's
can't
kind
do
of how I
that. You
felt.
gotta,
You,
yeah.
the way you just talked right there, oh no, was kind of what we can, how we can somehow recap what happened yesterday without that joint practice. It was a rough one for the Colts that we can definitely get into, at least offensively. So,
I,
yeah,
it's always fun for me to because I'm not there, right? But I'm always like watching on Twitter. I follow you and KB and Joel and Nate and Holder, all you guys. So and I'm watching on Twitter and I'm like, uh-oh, uh-oh. And then I get your story last night. I'm like, yeah, that's what I figured I was gonna get. Like
yeah, it
it
was
just
rough.
wasn't,
It was
yeah.
rough. Like not even the bucket hat, as cool as I was on the sideline, it did not translate to how cool they looked on the field. It was another hot practice and just a rough practice overall. And we can start with what else we're going to start with the quarterbacks. I
Quarterbacks.
thought
There's nothing
that
else. Yeah.
both had rough days, but for very different reasons, and for reasons that Jim, I'm sure you probably could predict going into the story, just because of how we talked about both quarterbacks. You having covered or at least edited it from afar both quarterbacks. You know what I'm about to get into. One quarterback had a typical day. Anthony Richardson, that was on par with what we kind of saw last year and throughout his career. 9 of 20 passing, inefficient, but then he has some wild moments. Then you have Daniel Jones. He's efficient, 13 of 16 passing, but it's dink, dunk, boring. And because of that, we still don't have a quarterback lead, at least in my opinion. This thing is still going to get stretched out, at least throughout the weekend with the preseason opener tomorrow. Not preseason opener, I'm sorry. The second preseason game tomorrow against the Packers. But yeah, when I
Yeah.
filed my story, I'll start there. What was your reaction to, I guess, sort of getting the details, not just the tweets, but the details of, okay, this is how it really unfolded out of Westfield?
Yeah, I loved your lead. And again, this is like, I feel like we're just talking about, again, I know James is my writer, and I'm like, oh, I loved how well you, but literally, like, this is my favorite thing because I was part of covering Xavier McKinney with the Giants for many years, and he was always honest, man. Like, he was always honest with Dan Duggan, who was reporting there, and Charlotte when she got there, Charlotte Carroll, who covered the Giants for us. But so when you led with him and his reaction to what he was seeing on the field, I knew again just because I had the experience with the Giants, like I knew he's honest, like he's gonna speak his mind no matter what. And the fact that he was watching Daniel Jones and going, same old shit, man. Like that's what it was. That's what he was
Yep.
like. He was like the guy who checks down, won't take any chances. In your story, you guys can read like begging him to throw the ball down the field. And maybe he was, again, I was reading. I'm like, maybe he's egging him on to try to throw a pick or something. But like,
Yeah.
I also the way you wrote it and the way it came across, I know to you was this guy is just not going to take any chances. He likes to play it safe. He likes to think it done. There was a part in his career. It was early on in his life. If you look back at his like, just go look at his like his Pro Football Reference page where he did throw a lot of picks. Like he had a lot of fumbles, and I can't remember what coaching staff it was with the Giants, but they pretty much came in and beat it out of him. They were like, "You are not going to put the ball at risk anymore. Like we cannot play football that way." And they did such a good job that I think you took a lot of the quarterback out of him. To be honest with you, I think you took a lot of the gunslinger or whatever you'd want to call it, the aggression. They took it out of him and everything. I was hoping we talked about this before camp, right? Like you talked to Dan Duggan, you wrote a story about it. Like this was the issue with him going, and I kept thinking, okay, well, if he's going to become the next Baker Mayfield, the next Sam Darnold, the next guy to like break out in his new spot, it's because he has this effort mentality of like, you know what, I tried it their way. I'm just gonna let it rip. That's what Baker did. That's what Geno did in those new spots. I'm just gonna let it rip. I'm just gonna play. And sadly, it doesn't seem like we're getting that. And then on the other end of things, and I'll let you go here, but like if that's the quarterback we're going to get from Daniel Jones, I was really thinking, okay, Richardson's just going to have to go ahead and take this job. And I think maybe a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he was on that path, and then you
Yeah.
have the injuries, man. It just derails him. We talked about this in the last podcast. It's here we go again with him. So it's just, it's a bummer. And this is the question I wanted to ask you was, it sounded like from the quotes that I read and heard from Shane Steichen that he wants to make a call on this because it sounds like he wants to know who his starter
It
is
does sound like
pretty
that.
soon. But I don't know if he's really close to it. And again, the way I'm, the relaying the information, the way I'm interpreting is no one's gone out and taken the job, so he can't name a starter yet.
And that's what to me is fascinating about this quarterback competition because normally when you talk about QB competitions, you're like, man, they're neck and neck. for reasons that are probably more positive, and it's making it harder to choose. But I think the reason why it's harder to choose in this case for the Colts is because both quarterbacks' flaws have been so clearly defined, and neither one has been able to overcome any of them to a certain degree to make the choice clear. Because I'm sitting here today, August 15th on a Friday, and we're about 3 weeks away from the season. I'm thinking to myself, if they were to go with Anthony Richardson, I would understand that decision. I'll probably back that decision.
Right.
If they went with Daniel Jones, I don't know if I would back that decision, but I would understand that decision because no quarterback in that race can definitively look at you in the face and say, I went out here and thoroughly outplayed this other guy. It's not even close. What are you looking at? This is my team. None of them have done that. Like, I haven't had that moment, or maybe a couple of different moments where I'm like, you know what? That
Yeah.
looks like a QB1 play,
Hmm.
but it just hasn't been sustained long enough between either guy. And I think that's what's probably frustrating for Shane Steichen is like, you know, one of you hasn't been like so god awful that I can't choose you,
Right.
but neither one of you have been so, appealing and successful that you've done it. You made it easy for me. So I think he's kind of like in a catch-22 spot because no matter what quarterback he chooses, I almost think that like, is that guy going to end the season as a starter?
No.
Is it
No.
better to be the
Probably not.
first loser? We debated this on the radio actually, Jim, and feel free to weigh in. But
Yeah.
we were
I,
debating like, is it almost better to be the QB2 to start the season?
yes. Yes. I was. I've been thinking. I've been.
Okay.
I'm glad you
All
guys
right.
talked about
All
this on
right.
the radio because
So
I've been thinking about this
expand
for
on
weeks.
why you think that might be the case because I think might have been Mark Dykton, our producer on 107.5 The Fan, who was saying this on the morning show. And I think I'm coming around to it. I don't know if I'm there fully, but why do you think that might be a safer position if that's the best word to use?
Because you kind of let the guy just fail on his own, and then you come in as essentially the white knight coming in to save the team.
Okay.
Like, okay, it should have been me the whole time, and I feel like I don't know from a personal like our personality standpoint, like you almost get to take a breath, like which you don't. Again, you don't want the quarterbacks to feel this way, but like week one comes around, and instead of like here we go, week one pressure, like gotta make it, like gotta deliver,
Yeah.
like you get to go, okay, like let's see what this guy does, and then I'm gonna take my like it'll be my turn when it's my turn.
Hmm.
Now, again, I don't. Again, the Colts don't want this to happen, but I do think that there's something to that. Like, I think if you're Daniel Jones and you're like, yeah, I was brought here to replace this guy, so being the number two after he struggles for a couple of games, the calls for Daniel Jones are going to get louder. There's going to be a lot of momentum building behind that kind of thing. It'll be the same way if Richardson's the backup too. But like, yeah, I kind of think there's a lot of positive momentum. Then you play one solid game, right? Because that's what backups tend to do when they come in. I don't know. I do feel like there's something to that. Now, if the guy wins the job, one of them wins the job and starts out gangbusters, then I guess that's bad to be the backup, that you just never get a chance to show it. But like, I think Chris Ballard said this maybe when they signed Daniel Jones. I think he said something to the effect of like they're probably both going to play this year. Like that's just the
Yeah, he
way.
did say that.
That's just the way it goes in the NFL sometimes, especially with Richardson's background of injury history.
Absolutely. So to get back a little bit to the actual practice yesterday, again, I thought that the offense struggled a ton. And it wasn't just necessarily quarterbacks. We can get into it. And we'll certainly talk about, the offensive line. There were some key injuries from yesterday as well we
Ooh,
can get into.
yeah,
But looking at the quarterback play as the, I guess, top of the pyramid, top of the food chain, to me, for Anthony, he missed on the layup throws that he had been making to a pretty good degree so far throughout training camp. I thought yesterday, honestly, Jim, it felt like last year
hmm,
where Anthony might be in a rut or he might have a bad stretch. And then it got late in the game because their last 2 minute drill with Anthony with the starters, he took them right down the field, 3 straight completions, drew a pass interference penalty in the end zone by A.D. Mitchell. They get down to the 1 yard line, punch it in with JT. He throws a 2 point conversion. It kind of felt like the New England game is how I would describe it, where like he doesn't have anything going
yeah,
for himself. And then at the end, the game gets tight. They're doing hurry up offense, and he just goes up there and he's not thinking as much and he performs. That's what that felt like. But everything else leading up to that, I mean, I didn't think Kevin made the joke on the radio. It's like they scored a touchdown at the end, right? And he's like, well, that's like the score to make it more cosmetic. It was already 30 to
Right.
0,
Yeah.
because they got waxed so much, with their offensive schemes and game plans. And I mean, it was at a point early on where nothing was working for either quarterback. And then you look at Daniel Jones, he ended his day with a pick in the two minute drill with the second stringers.
Right.
And even though again he was more efficient, to Xavier McKinney's point, I mean, this is a guy who played with him for 4 years in New York with the Giants. He's joking about it, but he's almost like he's relieved. Like, this isn't my quarterback anymore, because all this guy is gonna do is check it down.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think sometimes when I write these things, and it's hard to always like try to put it all into context, because I mean I feel like I spend half the time trying to remember, okay, what happened on this play. There's no all 22 for camp practice, although I might petition for it next year. Um, but I think when people read the stat lines, it's like, well, okay, Anthony was 9 of 20, Daniel Jones 13 of 16. He's automatically
Right.
better. It's like,
No,
not
right.
really, because for those who aren't familiar with how camp kind of goes in the team settings in the 11 on 11 periods, if the offense goes three and out, they're not going to just end that period. They will, give the ball back to the offense and they'll do some more
Yeah.
things. And
Right.
so there might have been a stretch in practice yesterday where Daniel Jones might have completed 8 or 9 straight passes in a row, but they didn't go anywhere. They didn't get any first downs. They didn't move the ball down the field. They didn't. You can't dink and dunk your way to success and victory. And so
Ugh.
again, yesterday was such a microcosm of both quarterbacks and why you could be for or against either one. Because Daniel, you're not going to get the explosive. That's just, he doesn't really bring that to the table. And then on top of that, with Anthony, the lack of efficiency. There was a pass he had, Jim, where they were down the red zone. And by the way, the red zone was terrible for the Colts yesterday. I think I counted 24 plays, including a couple penalties, false starts, illegal formations. That's a whole other
Jeez.
discussion we'll get into. That was rough. But there was a pass where it kind of reminded me a little bit of, though people, diehard Colts fans remember this, the play from a few years ago when Gardner Minshew had to hit Tyler Goodson on a speed out.
Yeah.
And he put it kind of like on his back hip, bad pass. Tyler drops it, season over basically. Everyone's mad at
Right.
Tyler. Anthony had a similar sort of play like that in the red zone where they guessed right. They get the Green Bay defense in the secondary off balance. He has this, all he has to do, he's running to his left, rolling to his left. DJ Giddens is right in stride with them. Throw it out in front of him, lead him to the pylon. He catches it, turns upfield, 2 yard touchdown, and you score. He threw it behind him and it was high. And it
Oh
was just
boy.
an egregious miss. And again, in those moments, you're thinking, at least I'm thinking, oh, that's the difference between 7 points and 3 points
Yeah.
right there. And that's the difference between winning and losing right there. Because we know the league, and I think Shane Steichen might have said this, like last year they had like one of the highest rates of one score games probably in the last 20 years, something like that.
Hmm.
So those little margins matter, and Anthony just couldn't really do that. Even in the last 2 minute drill where they actually scored, they get down to the 1 yard line because A.D. Mitchell drew a pass interference in the end zone. The play after that, Anthony's rolling to his right. He probably could have scrambled and ran in himself. He tries to throw it instead, throws it way too high to A.D. Mitchell in the back of the end zone. Egregious miss. I mean, you're thinking, wow, that's a horrible pass. Actually, Matt Snyder was next to me because he had come over to, because both teams had come to the same field. He came over and he was like, that's what you've been watching all day? And I'm like, well, pretty much, yeah, it's been that
Yeah.
rough. The next play after that, Anthony Gould is running across the back of the end zone. He's open. Anthony throws it way over his head. He throws it like he's throwing it to Calvin Johnson, and Anthony Gould is probably like 5'8" or 5'9". Miss, egregious miss. And then you're thinking, okay, wow, the clock, is stopped, but this is in this scenario, this is do or die. This is the game. And they finally punched in with JT, who, again, if you need a yard, you're probably going to go there maybe sooner. I think they were throwing the ball because of the clock situation, not having timeouts. If you get
Sure.
tackled, you get stopped, the clock's going to run. But even just trying to get over the finish line for that drive was rough from a passing standpoint. And then he comes back on the extra point and rolling to his right, throws a dime to Michael Pittman Jr. in the back of the end zone, keeps the play alive. And you're like, am I back in? Do I believe in him again? Like, is he the guy? And so that's what the roller coaster felt like yesterday. And again, for Anthony, it's the lows, it's the highs, and they ended it on a high note. And then for Daniel Jones, it's just kind of in the middle. And in the middle, you might get some good, you might get some bad. It might not be as like high or low, but I do wonder, if he doesn't push the ball down the field, can he sit in their offense and tell them I gave you a better chance to win? Because I'm just not seeing how the offense can be successful if he doesn't put the ball like, in my opinion, in play, or down the field or take some chances. So it was a rough day. It was rough, Jim. And I think the point I want to pivot to now, unless you want to feel free to chime in as well in the quarterback play, but I think you have sounded the alarm a lot more than me. The offensive line.
Yeah.
They replaced some guys. And Jim, it didn't really show up that much to me last week in the joint practice against the Ravens. But yesterday against the Packers, that offensive line looked like they were getting worked over. It was rough.
They got, I mean, again, I don't know who practiced yesterday for the Packers, but I will say that if you like pull up their depth chart, it's first round picks all over the place. It's Rashawn Gary, it's Kenny Clark, it's Devontae Wyatt, it's Lucas Van Ness. So Quay Walker's a first round pick. They got first and second round picks all over that defense. And part of the reason they've been a disappointment is because they haven't really delivered on that promise as much. But um, I guess that's the excuse I'll make for the Colts, and that is that they played a real top notch defensive line, probably. But yeah, it is concerning, man. Like and again, this is probably a good place to preview. You spoke with Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show, which I think that
Hmm.
podcast drops tomorrow morning. You guys should go listen. But you did talk about the offensive line and the questions you do have about Gonzalez and Bortolini, and
Hmm.
like the Colts, and we talked about this before. The Colts have earned Tony Sperano Jr. and the Colts have earned the benefit of the doubt. They
They
have
have.
churned out some quality players from spots you wouldn't have expected them to find them. So you gotta give them the benefit of the doubt. But like this doesn't make me feel great, and this is part of the honestly, if I'm tying it back to the quarterbacks, this is part of the anti Daniel Jones argument for me. Um, I think if you had a killer supporting cast, and they have great weaponry, frankly, like or at least an underrated group of weapons that they can use, which again I think you and Robert talk about. But they don't have like a dominant offensive line like the Eagles say, where I think you could just plug in a meh quarterback. Not saying the Eagles, but I'm saying for the Colts, where you could just plug in a meh quarterback and be like, yeah, if he just distributes the ball and it gets great protection,
Right.
like it's gonna be fine. Like that's fine. I do think you're gonna have to do more than that, and more than Daniel Jones is willing to do, or maybe even capable of doing. Which is why I still think I'm personally leaning Anthony Richardson, just because the upside is obviously higher with the guy.
That's the key. The upside. I get people like the downside with Anthony. I mean, the
Lower,
lows are
for
low.
sure. For sure.
But if you're trying to go win something or do something different or special, I just don't get that from Daniel Jones. I know he had the 1 year in 2022. They
Yeah.
went to the playoffs, they won a game, and that was the best year of his career. But it's hard for me, honestly, Jim, throughout 3 weeks of training camp, 4 weeks of training, whatever it is, it's been, to see him replicating that. Seriously.
That was the one of the best play calling seasons I've ever seen. Not to take too much away from Daniel Jones, he made some nice plays, but like Brian Dable was like on fire that year, and they did a lot of stuff that caught people by surprise. And if you look too, by the way, they started like 6-2, 7-2, and then
Hmm.
really struggled down the stretch and kind of backed their way into the playoffs. So I think they got found out a little bit, figured out. Now again, not to try to take away too much from Daniel Jones. He had a monster game, probably the best game of his life against that Minnesota in that wild card round, and they won. So I'm not trying to take that away from him. He has that on his resume, and Anthony Richardson doesn't have anything like even resembling that on his resume. So I get it, but I'm with you, man. Like I'm watching. I'm listening to you. I'm listening to others talk about what they're seeing from Anthony Richardson, and I mostly just am like, yeah, it's not great, but I'd rather see the upside, and I'd rather see is there a chance he can iron some of this stuff out? Is there a chance he goes from because we talked about this 9 of 20, not good enough. 11 to 12 of 20 might be good enough. Like might be good enough.
It might
And
be.
and so can we just play him enough? And this is on him more with the staying healthy, but can we just play him enough where those three passes that are incomplete start to become completes and we get to 12 of 20, we get to 60%, and we're feeling better about where the offense is. I'd rather take roll those dice than just play for the middle. But that's just me.
That's fair. And then how do you feel about, because this is the part that was harder about yesterday when it comes to evaluating the quarterbacks, is that, man, there were so many times. and I might have counted it. I know I counted at least 7 sacks, and by sacks, obviously you can't hit
Ugh.
the quarterback. But
Yeah.
Jim, there probably might have been 10, but there was at least 7 where I was like, in a real game, there is a 0% chance you get the pass off. This isn't one of those, they blew the whistle. They let him play. We don't know. It was not 50-50. A lot of these reps, they were getting worked over. So for Tanner Bortolini, I think yesterday was certainly kind of like another welcome to the league moment. Now, I know he's not a rookie, but it was evident that he was overmatched at times. Matt Gonzalez was also, in for a tough day. I thought Braden Smith, the veteran right tackle, I thought he had some moments yesterday that he certainly wishes he had back with allowing pressure off the edge. So, with all that in mind, Jim, how concerned are you about the offensive line? And big picture wise, how could that affect the evaluation of the quarterbacks? And if that's the case, I mean, where do you go from there if you can't necessarily get the full scope because everything is being met with, well, they didn't have enough time, or
Yeah.
they were running for their life, or they got hurt because they didn't have protection? Like, how do you feel about that? Because I was looking yesterday, like, man, this might be in a bigger issue than I've given it credit for.
Yeah, they have one of the offensive lines that like I think against average defenses or even maybe slightly above average defense, they'll be fine. They'll figure it out. It'll be okay. Like they have these guys, they'll be okay. But like if you're playing a really good defense, this becomes an issue. Like they don't have such a good line that it's like, they can just mitigate what these guys are bringing. And so that to me is like the way I interpreted that from when you wrote. So it's definitely concerning. But again, I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt on this because they have found passable to to above average players from places we didn't think they would find them. Again, though, I'm going to go back to this like sack mitigation is inarguably one of the things Richardson does very well. He did it
That is
well in
true.
college. He
Yeah.
did it well. He actually has done it well in the pros. It's not just shaking guys. I mean, everybody's gonna mind's gonna jump to like shaking Aaron Donald off of him or throwing the guy off the Texans off of him. Like
Right.
that is part of it. But he actually has and again, what a dumb thing I'm about to say after what we saw before. He has pretty good pocket presence. And I know he just got himself lit up in the last preseason
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
But he has shown pretty good pocket presence and pocket awareness in the past. Daniel Jones is, I'm telling you guys, one of the worst. One of the worst I've watched at it. Like we're talking, he takes 30, 40 sacks a season. Offensive line in New York was bad. They deserve a lot of the blame for it, but he takes a lot of sacks. Sack mitigation is not one of his strengths to me. So another point in favor of Anthony Richardson to me is if you're concerned about the offensive line, that would probably lead me toward wanting to put Richardson in there to help it out because he's mobile, but he's not the most aware quarterback back there. But I don't know. You said you were there. Like, what were you and the other reporters on the sideline thinking about the offensive line? Because you
Oof.
haven't highlighted it as a major issue until this point. So I'm wondering, is it more of a blip on the radar, or is it more like, oh, okay, this is a joint practice with real players. This is like a thing.
Yeah, I think it popped up a little bit for me in the preseason opener, the actual game, not
Okay.
not the joint practice. Because in Baltimore, I would definitively say the offense did pretty much whatever they wanted to do against the Ravens. I remember that was the 80 Mitchell practice basically, where he just cooked everybody.
Yeah.
Preseason game came, and I was like, I'm not loving what's going on up front, but it's not, it's workable, it's passable. Yesterday was not passable at all. I mean, every single Green Bay Packers player that played on the edge was basically thinking like, "You get a sack, you get a sack, no, you get a
Hmm.
sack." I feel like Oprah watching those people, and so I am concerned about it. And I think sometimes I understand why those moves are made. They're cost-cutting moves to move on from Ryan Kelly, move on from Will Fries, and to be quite frank, you can't pay everybody. Everybody can't get 80+ million like Will Fries did. So I
Right.
understand the logic in having him move on, and they were prepared to obviously have Matt Gonzalez step in. But you know, even though you didn't want to pay Ryan Kelly, or Will Fries might have priced himself out of your market, and the players that you are going to replace him with, they might be fine pros, but right now they're not as good as those guys. I think that was very evident yesterday in the practice because beyond, and I don't even think I mentioned this too much in the story actually at all, but beyond the protection issues, the snap issues were bad too. So, if they were getting a playoff, they were, or I'm sorry, if they weren't getting a playoff, it's because they were having a false start, illegal formation, jumping off sides as an offensive player, just like encroachment, just little things like that where you're just wondering like,
Yeah.
Anthony mentioned earlier in camp, like his cadence has to get better, and perhaps it might have been a little bit too
Hmm.
low. And so I do think about that too. Like,
Low,
you
like
know,
deep, like his voice is too deep.
I think it's just not loud enough, as far
Oh,
as,
interesting. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
because he kind of mentioned
His
that,
voice is very
like,
deep, so I didn't know if you
yeah, I
were.
think he
Yeah.
mentioned that, it might have been Q or somebody else was telling him, hey, you got to get your cadence, perhaps be a little bit louder or something like that. And he mentioned that he's
Interesting.
worked on that. And again, I don't know if it's cadence issues. I'm not in the actual huddle, but yesterday, Jim, it felt like every other play there was a penalty, and they just couldn't get anything going. And yeah, it's a scenario where in practice you can decide if you want to enforce the penalty or not or move back. But man, like I think about Sundays, and I think about how this team is not built. And obviously, you don't want to build any team like this, but they're not built to win a 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8.
Right.
They need to be in 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, something manageable because the quarterback play it doesn't allow you to really play from behind, literally like in a field aspect, like literally behind line of scrimmage, or from a score standpoint. You're not going to be able to pass to catch up and win. So,
Right.
um, yesterday was jarring, and I think a lot of cheeseheads out there at Grant Park enjoyed.
They're everywhere, man. They're
Yeah, they
everywhere.
they enjoyed seeing that for sure. But that was certainly something that stood out to me beyond just the QBs. And we can definitely get into some other players that stood out to me and um our guy, man, AD Mitchell.
Yeah, so finish it
Man,
off with that. Go, AD Mitchell. Like I saw some. It was weird. Like the Colts posted some highlights. I saw one from KB, but then you were like, "Yeah, those were like the good plays," but there were too many other ones, and it seemed like Steichen agreed.
check this out. So if you go back and watch those videos, Jim, I'm sure you'll be able to tell very quickly. Those are one-on-ones.
Right.
He kills one-on-ones. And honestly, those are designed for the receiver to look good. If you're
Of
not able to
course.
win a one-on-one, even if you're a fringe NFL player, if you can't win a one-on-one in space against a defensive back who has no idea what you're going to do,
Yeah,
you might not be an NFL player. You probably shouldn't be on the
I
practice
agree.
field. So it's funny when fans get hyped about that, or I'll even show a few of them myself, and the Colts fans will be like, "Man, like this, Alec Pierce cooked this dude," and it's like, "Well, yeah, he's supposed to. Like, there's no safety help over the top. There's no linebacker coming. It's me versus you, and I have the advantage because I know where I'm going to go." But once they got to the team periods, I thought that all the goodwill that AD kind of built up, it quickly disappeared. He kind of redeemed himself at the end of practice, like I said, by drawing that PI in the end zone and set up the 1 yard touchdown run by JT, and then obviously the 2-point conversion thereafter to win the game, quote unquote, the game. Not a real game, obviously. But before that, Jim, he had two of like the biggest blunders of practice.
Hmm.
When, again, the protection barely held up yesterday, but when it finally did, Daniel Jones hit him on a deep crosser, and you're thinking this is a 20, 25-yard gain. If he catches it in stride, it could be more.
Right.
Ball goes straight through his hands into the Green Bay defensive back. I,
Yikes.
I believe his name might have been Keyshawn. Is it Keyshawn Nixon?
Keyshawn Nixon. Yeah.
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 Keyshawn Nixon were chirping and going at it and talking trash all through our practice. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, you just gave him the gift of a lifetime, and he's gonna trash talk you to hell because
Yeah.
of this.
Forever.
So,
Yeah.
as soon as that happens, I'm thinking, and you know what it was, Jim, that also made me think. So that play happens straight through AD Mitchell's hands, balls on the money, goes to the DB, probably a pick six in a real game. The very next play, the very next play, Daniel Jones, who to his credit goes right back to AD Mitchell,
Yeah.
catches the ball over the middle, starts to move, gets raked over his arm, actually gets and it was all ball. I mean, obviously you're not supposed to tackle. Guy reaches
Yeah.
in,
But
he fumbles it. He fumbles it. They recover. Back-to-back turnovers. And this was not one of those like, oh, did he really catch it or not? Incomplete. No, he caught it and made a football move and was trying to get upfield, stuck their mid in there and just stripped it.
yeah.
So and the issue that I have, Jim, watching it is that both plays were when the simulated pressure was coming. So on the first catch, he catches over, on the deep crosser. In a real game, if he catches that, he might get hit
Yeah.
across the middle.
I
And
see.
you can kind of tell he's reaching for the ball, trying to move his body out the way, and that's fine. I mean, players do that all the time to protect themselves. But I do have questions in regard to that play, the second play, where again, catches over the middle. he's kind of trying to avoid a hit or whatever, get stripped. And I'm just thinking to myself, will you hang on to it when you got to get lit up? And I'm not saying we want you out there getting hospital balls thrown at you, obviously, but at some point as a receiver, you're gonna have to take a hit to catch a ball. And I
Yeah.
haven't seen AD Mitchell do that enough. And it felt like yesterday he kind of, heard a couple footsteps, got a little spooked. I
Such a
know.
bummer
I know.
because like I really don't want this guy's legacy to be like camp hero and then just nothing in the
I
season. But
know. And I'm giving
it's
some
starting to.
grace. Second year. Second year.
I know, but it
But
just
I
feels like
agree
that's
with
the
you.
track we're trending on, and we need to watch. We need to watch this whole second season of AD Mitchell to see what it really is. I don't want to. We're not. I'm not writing him off yet. I just last year was so frustrating. Like, it's this whole Colts team is frustrating. I mean, the Richardson stuff is frustrating. Like the AD Mitchell, like you, the talent is so apparent. It's so obvious
Oh,
there,
yes, 1,000%.
and you just like if you just do some of the little things right, and again, I think they're different issues that Richardson and AD Mitchell have, obviously, but yeah, I don't really honestly know where to go from the problem. And the problem for him is too is that he's not gonna get the benefit of the doubt unless, and you could probably end this here, but because he's competing for targets with Michael Pittman
That's what
Jr.
I'm saying.
and Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren and we all again. No matter what quarterback is playing, this is not going to be a high volume passing offense. We're talking 25 throws a game, probably. So, how many are going to go to AD Mitchell? How many is he going to earn? And the only guy I didn't mention was Josh Downs because I do want you to kind of fill us all in on what's going on with him.
Yes. So Josh Downs left practice. I was actually standing right there, Jim. It was late in one of the team periods, 11 on 11. And after he wasn't really involved in the play, but after one of the plays, he comes off the field and immediately like signals for a trainer. And I heard him say, "It's my hamstring." And I was like, "Oh no, like this is not good." He
Yeah.
lays down, he gets his left hamstring worked on, done for the day, kind of limps off the field. And now I'm at the point, Jim, where I wonder if he's going to be available for week one. And it got 3 weeks, but
Ugh.
still, you know how it is. Yeah, that's the
No,
sound that all of the Colts fans at Grand Point made yesterday. And I mean, you can speak to this. It doesn't take a genius or someone to be on the ground to know this. He was a big part of this offense last year. He led the team in catches.
he he's a special player, man. Like he can be a special player. The problem is the reason a guy like him fell to where he fell in the draft is because this was part of the knock on him is that he's small. The injuries are going to be a thing. Not to say he took a hit here, but now you're talking soft tissue injuries. Now you're talking about
Hmm.
taking hits. Like there's a whole bunch of things going on with him that are, I think again, I think we're part of his profile when you're uh 5'9", 170, which feels generous to be honest with you. But um, like I said, it's one of those like now they have the one of the major things you get Tyler Warren for is to be an over the middle presence,
Right.
especially a bigger one for these quarterbacks. So that will help mitigate some of the issues for the Colts because last year you didn't have Downs for sometimes when he was hurt. Pittman was playing with a broken back, trying to be that over like that deep intermediary. Like I'm sorry, the intermediary over the middle guy, and you didn't have that. Warren should help both of those
Yep.
things. Like he can, but you need to be at full strength because this Colts team has too many problems at quarterback to not be at full strength on offense and not
I
be
know.
kick like they have to have everybody there. And a guy like Downs is such a problem. It's such a nightmare matchup for most nickel corners and linebackers and anybody who's trying to drop down and cover him because the guy can get open pretty much against anybody. He is so shifty. He's got great
Yep.
hands. Like he can run pretty much any route. I think you saw last year, like even when they moved him the outside, he can make that work. Not that he's not going to be at his best on the outside, but he can make that work. So he's such a big part of this offense, such a promising piece that they can build with. And the consistency with him being on the field just hasn't been there. I'm not saying it's a here we go again with Josh Downs in the way we're getting with Richardson, but like it's frequent with him. It's definitely frequent.
Absolutely. And to cap off my story from yesterday, I'm sure you probably, raised your eyebrows at least a little bit when you saw the injury report. I mean,
Yeah, it's
these are
long.
guys, and this isn't everybody because, it's a 90-man roster in the summer, but
Right.
everyone that I listed at the end of this injury report, and I'll read it off for hear you all so you can understand what I'm talking about. But okay, so we had Josh Downs leave practice yesterday with the left hamstring injury. Defensive end Samson Ebukam, he left practice early with the back injury. These are both according to Shane Steichen.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, Kenny Moore was out of practice, knee injury. Jalen Jones, Juju Brents, hamstring injuries. By the way, Still no timeline, still no updates. All Shane Steichen is saying is they're progressing, but they haven't even participated in anything, I believe, in like the month of August. So it's already been 2 weeks. Alec Pierce has a groin. Jalen Carlisle, who was
Mhm.
probably in the spring penciled into the starter at linebacker,
Right.
he's in a boot now with his right ankle. Strong safety Nick Cross, he missed time. He's been sidelined, got a hip injury. Defensive end Quiddy Pay, groin injury. So like that's 7, 8, 9 guys that you're looking at to rely on in big roles this season, and they're banged up. So I remember we talked about how at the beginning of camp, Jim, there was no one on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, which is so rare for the NFL. And then you fast forward 3, 4 weeks later, and there's I'm not saying these guys are going to be like going on IR, be out for the
No, yeah.
year or whatever, but they might not be ready to go come week one. And we know how big, obviously, starting the year off with a win or two is huge for this team because, in my opinion, they're not built to play from behind, whether it's, again, field position, the score, or the standings. Like, this is not a team to me that's going to get hot and come from behind. Like, the Bengals every year start off stinking it up and they kind of figure it out and win 5 or 6 straight. I don't think the Colts can do that. And obviously, for any team, that usually come back to bite you if you start off bad to start the season. So, yeah, from an injury standpoint, that was also one of my biggest takeaways was, okay, yeah, you might have, defensively, you dominated. Offensively, you struggled. But more than anything, you didn't get out healthier. You got more hurt. And
No.
so that to me is a significant development. I mean, and obviously the Green Bay Packers, if there's some odd Packers fan listening to this for whatever reason,
Mm,
they're probably thinking, "Welcome to the club," because they were down all their guys yesterday. So
I know.
the game is brutal, man. It is brutal.
I was just gonna say, only thing I was gonna add to it was like these guys need to get healthy, especially on defense, especially at linebacker. Like if you're guys like Mike McDaniel, I mean, I know there's up and downs with the Dolphins, but guys like Mike McDaniel have a run game background and are really good at finding those holes if you have them. Now, again, I know Dolphins run game struggled last year, but I'm just
Yep.
saying this is kind of coach he
But
is. If
even
you
then, keep
have
in
the
mind,
holes,
like to your
yeah,
point, Jim, like A Chain, I think had like 80 catches last year or close to it. So it's not like
100%.
they won't use him come out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And again, do I trust A Chain who runs probably a 4-3 or something like that over in space over Zaire Franklin or one of their linebackers? I mean, I know
Yep.
Lou said he doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want linebackers covering running backs and wide receivers and stuff like that. But at some point, it's gonna be my guy versus your guy.
Yeah. I, I'm looking at the schedule and like there's not a lot of forgiveness here. It's Mike McDaniel, that's tough. Sean Payton is going to talk about a guy who's going to like pick out your weaknesses and
Yeah.
exploit them. Like Titans game, whatever. But now Rams, Sean McVay, like he loves running the ball as much as that reputation is for the high flying offense in Stafford. Loves
Hmm.
running the ball. We'll find you. Next one. Yeah, I don't know what we're getting necessarily out of Chip Kelly and the Raiders, but Ashton Genty still should scare you. Like for first 5 games, like if you're not on your P's and Q's in the run game, you're gonna get run over, and it's not gonna be good. So it's one of those things where it's a concern that's further down the list, but it's worth bringing up now because if they're not healthy and they don't have a starting caliber linebacker next to Zaire Franklin, who was already dealing with his own stuff, like could be an issue.
Yeah, and then you talk about other positions. Right now, if I had to guess, just out of curiosity, and I love kind of putting not pen to paper, but a little pencil to paper for those who are curious about the standings or position battles. So I would probably lean towards Anthony Richardson right now today as the week one starter at quarterback. I would lean towards Spencer Schrader in the kicking game over Mattis Trujillo. I think that Spencer's got it pretty much sewn up at this point. The question is just, can he do it on Sundays consistently? Because he only had 5 field goals last year as a rookie. When it comes to the linebacker spot, I'll probably go Joe Bacci at the weak side
Yeah.
linebacker spot. And this is a guy who's like a career special teamer. Now, he's familiar with Lou Anarumo's system. He knows what's going
Right.
on. He's been around the ball. But to your point, Jim, as far as run stopping, I don't know if he's the guy to fit those gaps. I don't know if he's capable of doing that. I don't know if they have that guy on the
Hmm.
roster beyond Zaire. So those are some of the position battles I'm looking at. And even cornerback, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
That went from being a position where I'm like, this is going to be Justin Wiley's position for sure,
And
to
look
now
deep,
being,
frankly. Yeah.
yeah, but because of the injuries, now it's completely wide open.
I
I
know.
mean, is Sam Womack going to be poised to start in week one? Those are all questions that I have. But yeah, it was certainly an eventful day out there in Westfield yesterday. I will say, I'm not like sad to see it go, Jim. I'm
Yeah.
never really that sad because it was hot. A couple of those days, I'm a skinny guy. I can't be losing weight, all this water weight. I was drinking water like it was going, just making sure I'm not. I never want to be the guy, Jim, who's like, could you imagine being like the reporter that passes out at camp? Like, dude,
No,
you're carrying a binoculars and a clipboard. Like, come on,
no,
man.
you hydrate. Yeah, that's all.
Exactly. So I won't miss camp, but I think that yesterday's joint practice with the Green Bay Packers was another big evaluation period for not only the quarterbacks but the rest of the roster too. So,
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
let me put you on the spot before we wrap this up. Does Yeah, I was going to ask you an easy version of this question, but I'm not. I'm going to ask you a hard version of this question. Um, does Anthony Richardson win the job on Saturday? Does he just go out and win it?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh Lord,
Because he's going to play the majority of the first half, assuming he stays healthy enough to do that.
these quarterbacks never make it easy on me, but I'll say yes. And my only caveat with that answer, Jim, is if he just plays. Like as long as he plays a couple of drives and doesn't get hurt again, that's probably a big win for him, number one. And you know what, Jim? Before we wrap this up, he finally kind of said that. And I forget who asked the question yesterday, but we were in the scrum and they were able to follow up with Anthony and they were like, hey, what do you want to get out of Saturday? What would be successful for you? And he said, just playing,
Yeah.
not getting injured, not getting knocked out. And I think that was the first time he ever really like went there with acknowledging, oh, by the way, yeah, I do understand that I have to be more available. And it's
Yeah.
not just a thing I can just dismiss or look over. So that to me is probably certainly a big factor. Is he available? And as long as he's available and isn't downright awful,
Yeah.
I think that he will win the job because on the flip side, I can't envision Daniel Jones, who, by the way, is only supposed to play a couple of drives. And I can't, I mean, unless Daniel Jones goes out there and he's 12 for 12 on back to back touchdown drives with 2 touchdown passes or something like that, I can't picture him doing enough to really take the job from Anthony. And he's had ample opportunities to throughout training camp. And really, it probably speaks to the quarterback play or lack thereof in this city right now because it's only close because neither quarterback has played well enough to win it outright. And so, as I've said throughout the offseason, Ty goes to the runner. Ty goes to the guy who's been here. And if it is
Right.
close, I would lean toward Anthony Richardson. Also, because I think you said it too, Jim. If you bench him to start the year, I think that's harder to pivot back to. Like it will be such a circus if you start Daniel Jones, Daniel stinks it up, and then you put Anthony Richardson back in, and you say we're back on. Like they did that last year with Joe Flacco, and everyone in the league had to be thinking, you guys look like idiots right now. You look like clowns. And I don't know if they're willing to, they shouldn't be willing to do that again. So I would
Yeah.
lean towards probably AR first. And then if it goes downhill, then you can say, well, we did try with our number 4 pick from a couple of years ago. It didn't work. And now we're going to place other guy. Hopefully we can win some games.
I think that makes the most sense. It's like swing for the upside, and if he proves he can't do it, then you put in the guy who's at least not going to kill you. You just hope that you can win around him.
Oh, what a competition. And then I'll end it with this. Last question before we should check out. Do you think Shane Steichen will name a starter after Saturday's game? Like, do you think we'll
No.
know by this time next week, will we know who QB1 is?
Yes. By this time next week, I don't think he's going to name him like after Saturday's
Right. No,
game.
I mean like in a couple of days afterwards, give it a week or whatever. But before the last preseason game, will
Yeah.
we know who the starter is?
Yes. I think we'll know. I think he's going to name him next week because that will help him determine who's going to play and who's not going to play in that final preseason game. And then, honestly, who's getting all the snaps? Like, it's time. It's time to buckle down and give a starter all the QB1 snaps and get this team ready and in sync and going for Miami. Because, like, it's time. It's time to game plan. So I think latest we get it is right after the final preseason game. But I think he's going to want to go before. So if Richardson does what you said, all he needs to do is just kind of play and show enough and stay healthy throughout the thing. I think they probably name him the starter sometime next week. That's my guess.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants to get a quicker answer, I'm looking at you, Greg Rakestraw, Rick Venturi, coach. They'll have Carla Ursay Gordon in the studio with
There you
them
go.
on the broadcast on I think it's CBS 4 tomorrow for the second preseason game. She's gonna do like her father did, third quarter. She's gonna come on and talk with the guys and I told Greg Rakestraw earlier on the radio, Jim, if you need me, I don't know if I'll get arrested for this. I'm like, if you need me to, knock on the door and pop my head in there and say, hey, Carly, who you want to start at quarterback? I will do so. I will
You're
take
a
one for
radio
the
pro.
team.
You're a radio
No,
pro. You ask the hard
we'll see what
questions.
happens. But no, for those listening, thank you all for tuning in. It's been hectic out there in Westfield. Like I said, I'm not gonna necessarily miss it, but it was fun. Camp always gets me excited for the season because no matter what happens, football is here, baby. So we will have, again, regularly scheduled episodes for you all very soon. And the next time we talk to you all, there might be a QB1 decision. So until then, stay safe, my friends, and we will talk to you next time.